My name is Simon Waugh. I'm the General Manager of External Affairs here at Base Titanium. And to tell you a little bit about Base Titanium's history, um, we entered Kenya back in 2010 when we took over and purchased the Kwale Mineral Sands project. At that stage, it was a project on paper, and through the course of 2010 through to 2013, Base underwent a very thorough process of redesigning the project, raising capital to build the project, and then signing up all the contractors and entering into the construction phase. First mining started in late 2013, producing minerals for a first shipment of ilmenite taking place in February 2014. Since then, the project has been a tremendous success. We currently account for 65% of the value of Kenya's mineral output, which makes us a serious and probably the major player in the mining sector here in Kenya. Over the course of the last few years, as I said, the project's been run very successfully. A huge focus on safety, building a culture of safety here at the Kwale mine. A huge focus on upskilling our workforces, transitioning to local workforces, focusing on local content, and really investing in the local community to ensure that the benefits of the projects are far felt. As we stand here today, we have about another 20 months worth of mining remaining, taking us through to the back end of 2024. But can assure you that the key priority and strategic objective of the company is to ensure that we remain operating in Kenya for as long as possible. We continue to contribute to the development of the sector and to the development of our local communities and to the lives of our employees. With that said, we've got some exploration work going on in the nearby vicinity of where we are. We've got a number of prospecting license applications currently in the system waiting to be granted. And with those in place, we look forward to extending our stay here in Kenya.
So how has the journey been for the last 10 years in terms of how the company has been able to
The experience Base has had has been exceptionally positive. The support that we receive from local communities, from both the county and national government has been immense. A project of this scale isn't possible without the sort of high-level support from government and the support, that strong social license from communities. In that sense, it's been exceptionally rewarding. It's been a very positive experience for Base. We believe it's been a positive experience for local communities and our employees as well. And we are generally recognised internationally within the mining sector as being a very successful project, not just from an operational front, from the technical mining side, but also on the environmental side, the way we engage with communities. And that work was recently recognised at the Cape Town Indaba Mining Conference, where Base took home two awards out of 5 in the ESG categories.
tell us about the CSR? You have been doing CSR projects for the last 10 years. Tell us about it.
Sure. So Base has invested heavily in its community development programs. Our core focus, which was derived through consultations with community, is to invest in 4 key areas. Those are social infrastructure, livelihoods, education, and health. And they've been the 4 pillars of our investment. With regards to those, I think social infrastructure speaks for itself. We're looking at water infrastructure, a bit of health infrastructure, some key health facilities, health centres, dispensaries, which we've constructed and supplied in partnership with the county government. When it comes to education, a focus on scholarships. When it comes to health, really empowering and building the capacity of community health units and the community health volunteers to provide information into the community on local health issues. And livelihood development has primarily focused on agriculture, where we work with a local cooperative called PAVI to deliver programs, improve local farming techniques, output, and to diversify crop usage. And there's now close to 3,000 members of the PAVI cooperative benefiting from those projects.
So let's move into the scholarship program. How much does the company invest in scholarship programs?
The scholarship program focuses, the majority of its focus is on secondary school, the 4 years of secondary school, and then we have a smaller component that sends a small number of students onto tertiary education. Over the last 10 years or so, we've had over 3,500 beneficiaries of the scholarship program at a cost of exceeding 700 million shillings.
Are there any countries you're currently working?
I've got no idea. The idea of the scholarship program is to provide educational opportunities for students who maybe would have dropped out of the education system anyway. It doesn't provide you with a pathway to a job-based titanium, and when it comes to tertiary educational opportunities in the scholarship program, the focus has really been on degrees that will give back to the community a bit more. We're talking about health degrees, nursing degrees, teaching degrees and the like, and there's plenty of beneficiaries from that side who are working all throughout the county, giving back to their local communities.
It's about 10 months for this term. So
20 months.
20 months, sorry. So tell us about the land rehabilitation because I aware there are some areas you are done with.
Look, the process of rehabilitation is something that is solely at the heart of our organisation and the work that we're doing at the moment. We're exceptionally proud of the work that our environment team and our operations team has been able to do when it comes to rehabilitation. If you travel around the site, there are many areas that you see that were previously mine pits that you would not recognise. You'd see them as very vibrant grasslands with forests growing on them from all the trees we've planted. So we take it very seriously. We have two types of rehabilitation going on currently on site, and the team's working very hard to ensure that those obligations, when it comes to rehabilitation, are met and are met to a world-class, world-leading standard.
How many acres so far?
No idea.
Let's talk about the CBC.
Sure.
You tell us about how the correlation to CBC, the company.
Okay. The community development agreements and the community development agreements committees were introduced by the Mining Act 2016 in what was a very positive development for the sector. What these community development agreements, or CDAs, did was codify and regulate the requirement of large-scale mining companies to allocate funds for community programs. Before that, it was always at the whim of the company whether it was done or not. And this now confirms it and cements it.
You'll have to tell it please. Let's talk about the CBC and the correlation. You can start again.
You want me to start again?
Yeah, just start again.
Okay. The CDACs, or the Community Development Agreement Committees, were established under the Mining Act 2016 in what was a very progressive and positive development for the mining sector. This part of the Mining Act regulated the requirement for large-scale mining companies to provide 1% of their revenue to the Community Development Agreement Committees in order to be spent on community programs. Prior to this requirement, it was always at the whim of a mining company whether to invest in local community programs or not. Over the last few years, BASE has established its community development agreements to share in that 1% of revenue. We actually have 3 community agreement committees stretched out over our areas of impact with this project, and they share that 1%. The experience for BASE has been exceptionally positive at this point. It's created an additional interface and avenue for providing benefits to the local communities. It's provided the local residents with a real ownership of those projects, a real ownership of the direction those projects go, what the money is spent on, and it's strongly felt. In BASE's circumstances, we are fully supportive and fully engaged in the CDAC process, but we also recognise that the community has other needs that may not be met by the CDAs, and so we continue to invest in our own community programs that are separate from the CDAs.
So, I believe they receive funding each financial year.
So CDAs receive, regulated to receive 1% of revenue generated by a mining project. And the way it works is, for us anyway, is that money accumulates over time, because sometimes you can't spend the money all at once. You can't spend it at the rate at which that allocation is generated. So the CDACs are notified each month about how much they have in reserves, how much that allocation is remaining to be spent, and that allows them to forward plan for their future programs.
So, what is the specific role of CDS, especially when it comes to implementing this project? Is there a standard that this is how it's supposed to be done, or how they're supposed to do their work?
The CDACs set up to be a interface with community to identify priority projects for their constituencies or those community members. They then work to identify contractors, if it's an infrastructure project, for example, to vet the contractors, to scope the projects. They then enter into those agreements and the contractor gets to work. The CDAs then have a role of monitoring and evaluating the projects and obviously launching them on completion.
Do you have any questions, Coca? So, my last question: are there any other areas that you are looking to start exploration for the next 20 months? I think you're there for at least 20 months. And then what happens to the land after taking this particular date?
As it currently stands, the current mine life takes us to the back end of 2024. It remains Base's number one priority and objective to ensure that we remain an operating, producing mine here in Kenya for as long as possible. As such, we're currently undertaking some local exploration work in the vicinity of the mine, and over the course of the next 6 months or so, we should have a clearer understanding of where that option's going and whether there's any possibility of further mine life extension. On top of that, we have prospecting license applications in other parts of Kwale and on the north coast in Lamu. And once those licenses are issued, Base can get to work discovering if there's any more minerals. As we approach the end of the mine life, despite the fact we're looking to extend it as long as possible, it's imperative and it's incumbent upon Base to start thinking and planning about what comes next and what that means. I spoke earlier about rehabilitation. That's a huge part of it. The way you can rehabilitate the land opens up your optionalities for what happens next to the land after mining's finished. And so there's a huge project around that. It's a huge focus on rehabilitation and a huge focus on providing what we call post-mine land use options. Now, it should be made clear that the land in which Base mines and which it operates on at the moment is under a lease issued by the national government, and the land that we operate on is held by the national government. It's not a decision for Base what happens next, but as such, we want to go through a process where we explore and develop certain optionalities that will help the government, local communities, county governments make decisions about what is possible with the land going forward. As such, we're looking at 3 key areas. Those areas are agribusiness, education and training, and sustainable conservation. I think agribusiness speaks for itself. We have, I think we have 600 hectares of rehabilitated land. We have built a dam that could be used for irrigation. The land will be rehabilitated. We are doing agricultural tests to demonstrate that farming is possible, and we're just looking at the options for different crops that can be grown, productive, can be grown on a large scale, and that potentially have some kind of value addition component or an export component to them. What we're looking for there is job creation and providing opportunities for local investors and the local communities in order to participate. When it comes to training and education, again, it's a natural fit. Base has a very long-standing relationship with the key training institutions in Kenya, be it NITA or TVET. On site, we have workshops, we have the land, we have classrooms, we have offices. It makes perfect sense to explore an option for some kind of vocational training facility to come on site. And when it comes to sustainable conservation, like clearly environmental management and stewardship is very important to Base Titanium. We've done a lot of work, whether it's with Forestry Service over the years, national museums, NEMA, WRA, to ensure that our environmental standards are world-class, to ensure our rehabilitation, our restoration is world-class. and that we're really contributing to sustainability, biodiversity, and conservation. We've got a number of important forest ecosystems nearby. We'd like to see them preserved and protected even more. And so sustainable conservation is clearly an excellent option as well.
My question would be, how many years would be getting once if the government agrees with what the mining rights are going to be suspended?
There's no answer for that. There's no answer.